18 seconds is equivalent to 18 years. These guys, I don't know what their problem is. Hi guys, welcome back again. So today we're going to be checking out 4 a.m. missile storms hit USS Truman. The US retaliation shocked the world. Wait, 4 a.m. missile storm? Like, who sent the missile? Like, I'm confused. Well, if it was sent by someone, I don't know how much emphasis I need to put on. Stop trying. Stop poking this bear. Stop. Stop. Even if it was nature, you will learn. You will learn. And you will learn. All right. Sorry for that. Let's just dive right into the video and get the context of the video.
4:42 a.m., April 2nd, 2025.
This
A
year,
swarm of 15 ballistic missiles and more than 20 drones launched from Yemen hurtled toward the USS Harry S. Truman, a 100,000-ton, $13 billion plus symbol of American naval dominance. It was more than an attack. It was a challenge, a direct strike at the heart of the American military presence in one of the most strategically important waterways on Earth. The enemy thought they could blind her, break her, sink her. But what followed was more than a defense. It was a lesson in modern warfare, a lesson that would echo across the oceans, into the hallways of every military command in the world. This is the untold story of how a U.S. aircraft carrier survived the biggest drone and missile ambush in decades and responded with firepower, silence, and precision. Subscribe and follow along as we reveal military secrets. What happened when the ship was attacked? Let's discover the truth. April 1st, 2025. The Red Sea lay calm beneath a cloudless sky. The USS Harry S. Truman, a $13 billion floating fortress, moved steadily through international waters, its crew unaware that within minutes, they would face the most coordinated missile and drone assault on a U.S. carrier in decades. At exactly 4:42 a.m., alarms shattered the silence on the carrier's bridge. Dozens of red icons appeared on the radar display. At first, it was chaos. The signatures were erratic. Some appeared to be high-altitude missiles, others skimming low across the sea surface. Then came the confirmation. A full-scale multi-vector strike had been launched from northern Yemen. 15 medium-range ballistic missiles were en route, their trajectories arcing over the southern tip of the Arabian Peninsula. But that wasn't all. From the west and northwest, a swarm of over 20 unmanned aerial vehicles, many of them equipped with electronic jamming systems, began flooding the electromagnetic spectrum with noise and false targets. The bridge went red, not just metaphorically, but physically, as red lighting kicked in and battle stations were called. The crew had trained for this, but no drill could ever replicate the sight of hostile warheads converging on your position from multiple directions, some diving from the stratosphere, others hugging the sea like ghosts. Lieutenant Commander Brian Hawkins, radar operations officer, described it later as a moment where time stopped. 1 second he said they were monitoring sea lanes. The next, the ship was the target of a modern-day blitzkrieg. Complicating matters, the incoming drones weren't traditional threats. These weren't designed to kill. They were built to blind. Jamming pods, decoys, and signal distorters overwhelmed Truman's radar screens. For a full 18 seconds, the ship's main phased array system lost track of incoming ballistic threats. A dangerously long window in the face of Mach 5 missiles.
for 18 seconds is a lifetime. 18 seconds is a lifetime. Especially during war. Is a see, is a 18 seconds is equivalent to 18 years. Now, I'm not a military person, so this experience is just from a gaming perspective, so that none of you will come after me in the comment section. I was playing a game a certain time, like a war game, Age of Origin, if most of you know it. I really enjoyed that game. Now, I was in a battle. My network went off. Just leaving the first floor to the ground floor to ask my wife to share her network with me took about 10 seconds. And in that 10 seconds, it felt like I was traveling through ages of time. It felt like each year was passing by. So 18 seconds for a military ship to be blinded is a lifetime. Is a lifetime. Like, Any one of those 15 missiles could have hit at any second. These guys, I don't know what their problem is, man. I don't know. Firing 15 missiles on one ship, not just 15 missiles, then you now sent drones to blind them. These guys are upping their game. These guys are upping their game. I think the US needs to. I know how I know that they will, but they need to become. I think they should upgrade more because these guys are upping their game. I know that they can send missiles, but now sending drones to literally blindside. That's crazy.
But the crew didn't panic. Within moments, electronic warfare specialists on board began filtering out noise.
Oh,
The escort
God.
destroyers USS Gravely and USS Mason, operating nearby, spun up their Aegis systems. Operators recalibrated targeting priorities manually. CIWS teams ran to their posts. The Truman was awake, and it was angry. Still, one missile slipped through the outer net. Flying just above the wave tops, it detonated near the Truman's starboard bow. The ship shook violently. No visible damage, no hull breach. But every sailor on board felt it. This was not a warning shot. This was a message, a declaration. For the first time in decades, a U.S. nuclear-powered aircraft carrier had come under direct, multi-pronged assault by a hostile force. And though no one had yet spoken it aloud, the reaction was forming fast. This would not go unanswered. The moment the first blast rocked the hull, every man and woman aboard the USS Harry S. Truman knew this was not a drill. The ship's Combat Information Center came alive with a cold, mechanical rhythm. Hands flying over consoles, commands shouted, confirmations echoed back with the clipped precision of wartime instinct. The Truman Strike Group, scattered in formation across the waves, began to respond like a single living organism. The outer defense perimeter was the first to ignite. Dozens of miles from the Truman's flanks, the USS Gravely and USS Mason, guided missile destroyers equipped with the Aegis combat system, sprang into action. Their SPY-1 radars, long accustomed to tracking fighter jets and cruise missiles, now painted a very different picture. 15 ballistic missiles descending rapidly while a storm of jamming UAVs clouded their targeting data. No hesitation. SM-2 and SM-6 interceptors roared skyward in staggered volleys, their contrails twisted like angry scars against the dawn sky. Within moments, 5 enemy missiles were vaporized midair, their debris lighting up the horizon like unnatural stars.
That's what I'm
But
talking
this
about.
was only the beginning. As
Like,
ballistic
10 more
missiles
is too
fell,
many.
low-flying drones approached in silence, cloaked by sea clutter and flying below radar horizons. These were the real threat, not just
Yeah.
in payload, but in function. They were hunting Truman's blind spots. That's when the second layer of defense kicked in. Aboard the Truman, the evolved Sea Sparrow missiles, ESSM, came online, firing from vertical launch cells along the carrier's deck. Designed to track fast, agile threats, they locked onto erratic drones and intercepted them just miles out. Explosions echoed across the waves, sending wreckage raining into the sea. But not everything could be stopped from afar. The third and final line of defense, the close-in weapon systems, CIWS, nicknamed Sea-Whiz, spun up with a whine of spinning barrels. The sound was unforgettable. A mechanical scream followed by a storm of tungsten shells tearing through the night sky. One drone, flying barely above the waves, slipped through. It skimmed toward the flight deck, fast, low, and deadly. And then, it vanished. Shredded midair by a hail of gunfire, it erupted into a fireball just 400 yards off the starboard side. The blast wave slapped the hull. Smoke drifted over the deck. But the Truman endured, undaunted, unbroken. Below deck, sailors in fire-retardant gear stood ready, eyes locked on monitors, hearts racing, but orders remained calm, steady. One officer described it later. It felt like chaos, but it wasn't. It was choreography. Despite the intensity of the assault, despite over 30 simultaneous threats converging on one floating warship, not a single American life was lost, not a single aircraft damaged. No breach, no fire, no surrender. And in that moment, something became clear. The Houthis hadn't just tested a ship, They had tested the United States Navy, and the Navy passed. Next, the U.S. will show Yemen the price to pay for daring to attack a symbol of power. In the aftermath of the failed barrage, a strange calm settled over the USS Harry S. Truman. Not the peace of victory, but the tight-lipped silence of soldiers who knew something bigger was coming. The ocean still hissed with the echoes of intercepted warheads. Above, the drone of circling aircraft replaced the scream of CIWS fire. Below deck, every heartbeat was synchronized with the mission clock. Inside the Combat Information Center, CIC, the mood had shifted from reactive to strategic. The nerve center of Truman's strike group was now in full command mode. Commander Rachel Lynn, overseeing electronic warfare operations, stood over the main console, eyes narrowed. The swarm may have been beaten back, but the enemy's intent was unmistakable. They had wanted to blind the fleet before delivering a death blow, and that meant this was no one-off skirmish. It was a message, a declaration, and it demanded a response. The first priority, re-establish full situational awareness. Up above, an E-2D Hawkeye early warning aircraft banked hard and climbed to high altitude. Its massive radar disc scanned the sea and sky in 360 degrees, feeding real-time targeting data back to Truman and its escorts. Within minutes, the confusion caused by electronic jamming began to lift. The cloud of chaos parted. A picture began to form. At the same time, EA-18G Growler jets, already airborne for standard patrol, were rerouted to the Red Sea's southern corridor. Their mission, total electromagnetic dominance. The Growlers began pulsing high-powered jamming waves back across the same frequencies used by the enemy UAVs. Like flipping a switch, multiple hostile drones still loitering in the region sputtered, lost signal, and spiraled into the ocean. Truman's crew wasn't just defending, they were fighting back with invisible weapons. Down in the war room, officers stood shoulder to shoulder with digital strategists and intelligence analysts. The coordination was flawless. Air, sea, and cyber domains all working in tandem. It wasn't chaos. It was calculated defiance. Rear Admiral Marcus Vance, commanding officer of the Carrier Strike Group, spoke to CENTCOM through a secure channel. They wanted to blind us. They wanted to scare us. They failed. We are not damaged. We are ready. As new data came in from satellite and aerial reconnaissance, one fact became clear. The launch sites had been mobile, hidden, but not invisible. A trail of infrared signatures led back to hardened launch pads in the mountains near Saada and camouflaged drone warehouses near the Yemeni coast. The room grew still. Nobody needed to say what came next. Retribution wasn't just expected, it was necessary. Above the calm sea, beneath the glow of red emergency lighting, crews began prepping strike aircraft. Armorers loaded missiles with the steady rhythm of professionals. Pilots reviewed final coordinates in silence. And below decks, commanders finalized what would be one of the most complex retaliatory operations of the decade. Because the message had changed. The United States wasn't simply going to defend, it was going to answer, loudly. By the afternoon of April 3rd, the missile strikes had ended. The dust had settled over Saada, but the battle wasn't over. Not in the skies, and certainly not in the electromagnetic shadows where modern wars are increasingly won. While the world focused on craters and explosions, something quieter, and perhaps more revolutionary, was unfolding aboard the escort ships of the Truman Strike Group. Miles off the Yemeni coast, the USS Gravely and USS Mason were running an entirely different kind of operation. Their weapons weren't missiles, they weren't bombs, they were signals. For months prior to the attack, the U.S. Navy had been testing an advanced doctrine of non-kinetic warfare, using electronic and cyber tools to disable incoming threats without ever firing a shot. Now, in real combat, the systems were being used in full. The ASLQ-32 electronic warfare suite, known among sailors as Slick 32, was the centerpiece of this invisible arsenal. As Houthi forces attempted to re-establish drone operations in the wake of the U.S. retaliation, Slick 32 began broadcasting powerful jamming waves, disrupting control links, frying GPS signals, and turning hostile UAVs into blind, drifting wrecks. One by one, the drones began falling. No smoke, no noise, just silence and impact. One sailor aboard the Mason later recalled, "You'd look at the radar and see them moving. Then you'd watch them just stop, like someone unplugged the sky." This wasn't theory anymore. It was working. For the first
statement that someone unplugged the sky. You see, when you want to fight an enemy, be sure you are well equipped. Because that enemy you're about to fight could be 10 times more dangerous than you are. You guys wanted to fight using EMPs, using micro waves, frequency. They just told you guys they could literally unplug the sky. They literally unplugged you guys. Come on. Come on.
time in naval history, an American destroyer neutralized a swarm of UAVs without expending a single missile. Not only did this save ammunition, but it also preserved strategic flexibility. The destroyers could stay on station longer, unburdened by the need for immediate resupply. More importantly, it revealed something far greater. The future of naval defense isn't just steel and firepower. It's algorithms, waves, silence. Signal exploitation teams aboard the ships monitored electromagnetic activity, tracking enemy attempts to reconnect or reprogram their drones. And when they tried, they were jammed again. Harder, smarter. For every weapon destroyed on land, 2 more were rendered useless in mid-air. It was victory by erasure. And it wasn't just the US Navy acting alone. French and British naval assets in the region provided radar coverage and intelligence, extending the reach of the strike group and creating a coalition net that no drone could sneak through. It was a new kind of warfare, multinational, multi-domain, and almost completely silent. By April 4th, intelligence confirmed the unthinkable. No new drone launches had been detected in 36 hours. The Houthis, once brazen enough to strike at a nuclear-powered aircraft carrier, had gone quiet. Their infrastructure shattered, their communications crippled, their drones blinded. The war had changed. The weapons had changed. But one thing remained clear.
The hunter became the
Technology
hunter.
alone doesn't win battles. Discipline does. Doctrine does. Teamwork does.
Exactly.
And in the silent war, America was not just prepared, it was already ahead. As April 5th dawned over the Red Sea, the horizon was quiet. The skies, once filled with buzzing drones and missile trails, now stretched unbroken above the USS Harry S. Truman and its strike group. But beneath that calm lay a truth that echoed across the globe. The world's most powerful naval vessel had been tested, and it had prevailed. The American retaliation had been swift, decisive, unmatched. But more than the firepower, more than the satellites, the jets, or the submarines, what shocked the world was how flawlessly it all worked together. Every layer of defense, every link in the chain, from the radar operator on the Gravely to the CIWS gunner on the Truman's port side to the EA-18G Growler pilot jamming enemy radars from miles away, each piece did its part. Not by accident, by design. This wasn't just a victory of hardware. It was a triumph of training, doctrine, and resolve. But behind the success, questions lingered, hard questions. How had a force like the Houthis operating from trucks and hillsides managed to launch a coordinated missile and drone ambush against the most advanced carrier strike?
I keep asking this question, but nobody has ever given me a definitive answer. How do these guys get their hands on all this advanced equipment? Like, who the hell is bankrolling them? Like, how do they get their hand on these sophisticated weapons? Because, okay, before we were like, okay, drones, I said drones, missiles, no problem. Now we're talking about high-tech drones, not just your daily average drones. Because like when they first said something here, they said they were not the usual drones that they were expecting, like the hostile drones that they will start shooting and stuff like that. These were drones equipped with electromagnetic, disruption capability. How do they get their hand on such sophisticated equipment? It is the biggest question I have. If you know the answer, and you don't want to say it in public, just let me know. I really want to know. Like, honestly, how do they get their hands on this? Because it's really disturbing to know that they can actually have access to such weaponry. A lot is on my mind, though.
How close did we come to disaster? And what happens next time when the enemy is faster, smarter, or backed by a state sponsor with near-peer capabilities?
Exactly.
The answer, as the Pentagon would later emphasize, lies in evolution. In the weeks following the attack, top military analysts began pushing for accelerated upgrades to carrier defenses, more advanced radar filters, AI-assisted jamming prioritization, hypersonic interceptors, directed energy weapons, lasers and microwave cannons, designed to neutralize drones in microseconds. Because the reality is unavoidable, the battlefield is changing, and the threats will only grow.
Definitely.
But amidst this shift, one thing remains unchanged. You do not attack a U.S. carrier and walk away unscathed.
As all.
The Truman Strike Group's response was more than retaliation. It was a global statement. To state actors watching from Moscow, Tehran, or Beijing, to non-state militias hiding behind civilian terrain, to pirate groups, proxy fighters, and would-be saboteurs, this is what happens when you test American resolve at sea. In just 48 hours, an entire drone infrastructure had been dismantled. Radar sites reduced to silence. Launch teams scattered. A threat neutralized not only by missiles, but by coordination, precision, and overwhelming readiness. Rear Admiral Marcus Vance said it best in a closed-door briefing days later. They hit us to prove a point. We responded to remind the world, we're still the ones who write the rules on water.
Definitely.
And that message, it didn't just travel
They're the
across
ones
the
who
Red
write
Sea,
the rules
it
on
traveled around the
water.
world. In the face of overwhelming
I
firepower
love
and
such
cutting-edge
statements.
electronic warfare, the USS Harry S. Truman and its strike group stood firm, proving once again that American strength
And the
isn't
first
just
shall
built
be the
on
last,
steel,
and the last
but
shall
on
be the
people,
first.
preparation, and principle. This was more than a military engagement. It was a powerful reminder that even in the age of drone swarms and asymmetric warfare, discipline, training, and unity still win battles.
Definitely.
But this story carries a deeper lesson. In today's unstable world, peace is preserved not by waiting, but by preparing. The threats may evolve, but so will the defenders of freedom, quietly, relentlessly, and with absolute precision. If you believe stories like this matter, if you value truth,
Honestly, I have no more better word to say. You understand? He said it all. They are the ones that write the rule on the freaking water. And if you must come to that ocean, if you must enter that sky, you need to do so respectfully, or so God help them. You will learn. You will learn. I always say, don't poke the bear, don't poke the bear. People don't get it. You see, sometimes it's not just about, actually, I was actually expecting them to just send some badass missiles, but still the same thing. They just showed them the supremacy of because this attack was just mostly about tech. Yes, they do fire 15 missiles, but this was mainly about tech. And they showed them in the tech space, we are supreme. We are supreme. We know you are here. We know where you are. And to show you how effective it can be, we're going to cancel communication between you and your drone, sinking every single one of them. It's really impressive. It's impressive. I don't know when they will learn. I don't know. I think I should open a course that states, do not attack the freaking US Navy. Do not. And I think I'm going to be selling that course because this knowledge can be free. I've been talking, nobody wants to listen. So I need to sell a course on do not attack the freaking Navy ship. Do not do that. I don't know what motivation you got. I don't know who is a motivational speaker, but don't attack the US Navy. I'll see you guys on the next one. For now, remember, blessed and bye.